Hello everyone, I hope you must doing well. So, welcome to lecture 3, and in this lecture we are going to learn about some procedural texture, right? As in the shading, right? And if we add a new material and shift A, and whatever shortcut I'm using, it is visible over here, and shift A. Under the texture there are multiple texture over here. All right. And before proceeding with it, one thing I want to add, like there is nothing, for example, the noise texture, or we can pick the Voronoi texture, right? For example, these two, right? So there is nothing to explain in that, right? You can have shift A, you can go to texture and drop down. There are various type of texture, and you are going to plug with the node and you will get the result, right? And on the basis of result you get to know that if you wanted that texture you needed to add a noise, and if you want that type of texture then you needed to add a Voronoi texture, right? There is no statement like thing, right? So it is depend upon your mentality, it is depend upon your experience, it is depend upon your creative thinking, how you can use different type of texture with different things, right? But in this video we will go through all the with some textures so that you get some ideas, and whatever texture is there, which is remaining, you can play with by yourself, right? By adding or increasing or decreasing the values, changing the parameters. All right. Yeah. So here we are, and we are having again the default cube, and let's delete everything, and the material name is over here. And yeah, so if you haven't watched the previous videos of lecture 1 and lecture 2, you can watch that, and yeah, get started with this. So shift A, and another texture, let's add a noise texture, right? You can plug directly if you want, right? It is creating a noise, right? The term noise determines it will create the noise, right? But if we are going to add a Voronoi texture, right? So one thing, don't try to set your mind on the term which is written over here. Like the noise texture name is here, and you can assume that yeah, it is going to create that type of texture. But under the Voronoi texture you cannot assume that type of something, right? Even if you are going to under the texture, if you are going to let's add a magic texture, right, and plug the color into the base color, it is creating this effect, right? And it is by default from the blender, right? And it is called the procedural texture. Why it is called the procedural texture? Which determines computer generated, that is CGI, right? So don't try to set the mentality on what the term or what the node name is written over here. By the name of this texture, which is noise texture, you can get the idea, but most of them you cannot get an idea, right? For example, brick texture is there, you can get an idea like it is going to add some brick like structure, right? Yeah, over here, right? But most of them are texture which are not, you cannot determine by their name what effect they are going to do on your object, right? So that is my point. You can experiment, and for example this one, the muscular texture we added, right? So how, from the name, the reason it is named as a muscular texture, that I don't know, but the thing which I wish to tell, I told you, right? So you needed to remember, like the noise texture is proceeding that type of texture or generating that type of texture, or noise generating that type of texture, right? So that is my point. Yeah, so under the noise texture we can plug into the base color and it is the noise, right? And the another workflow which we can follow, for example, we can add a color ramp, right? By the color ramp, if we want to mute this color ramp, right, so we are going to select this color ramp and we are going to press M in our keyboard, right. By this effect it is get muted, right. And if we are going to increase the values, it is going to affect. And what if you only want the noise texture, whatever the noise texture is generating the effect, that should only visible over the material, right. So for that you can click on it, you can press M and you can mute, right. So the noise texture node is directly connected with this node like this, right, like this one. So we can drag this in between and we can press M again to unmute the node, right. So whenever we are going to increase or decrease the values, it is going to represent the black values and the white values, right. Initially it is like this. The black, if you are going to click on black, it is represented or it is having a value of 0, right. It will help you in masking also. And the another white, right, it is having a value of 1, right. And over here you can see we can change the location of it, the node location or the pointer or the marker, whatever you like to say. So whenever we are going to increase the black value is going to influence the more on the surface. And whenever we are going to increase the white values, the 1, right, the white value is going to influence the more. So let's keep in between so that we can see the effect in a more right way, right. So black color is represented as this one and white color is represented as this one, right. You can change the color also. For example, you can click over here, you can change the color red, you can make it red, right. And you can make the color, for example, sky blue, yeah. And the color which is over here, that is a blend of these two, right. And under over here drop down, there are different options which will give different noise, right. For example, it is by default it is set to linear, and we can set to ease so that it is creating much more these effect, right. Let's plug in linear and ease, right. You can see it is difference, right. So you can have that, and that is cardinal which is generating this effect, right. Again, nothing is determined by the name which is over here. You can experiment and get to the point by yourself, right. And that is a value of constant. So the term constant determines there will be no gradient over there. For example, if you zoom over here, if I zoom over here, you can see the red color is over here and the gradient of red color is also shading over here. And if I talk about the blue one, right, the color of blue is also shading or making the gradient effect over here also, in between these two, right. So when we are going to use the constant, it will not be there, right. We don't going to have see that gradient effect. We are having only the constant, that we cannot see those gradient effect, right. So that is a work of constant, right. So we can set to ease or linear. Let's switch to ease, right, no issue. Yeah, so this is a purpose of noise texture. You can generate this type of noise. You can make a dirt, on a glass, right. So you can set various example. You can take real life application also, right. It is completely up to you, right. And there are different mode, right, like 1D through 2D, 3D and the 4D, right. 2D is over here and 4D is over here, and one difference is there, like you understand the 1D, 2D and 3D, right, but 4D is probably going to be new for you, right. For example, in the 3D you can see X, Y and Z axis is there right over here, right. you can see by holding some time over here, we are having some menu over here, which is written use the 3D vector x, y, z as an input, right? So under the 3D, it is the combination of x, y, and z. All right, and under the 4D, it is a combination of x, y, z, and w. And what is the w value? So it is a value which helps to animate the noise texture. For example, if you are going to change this one, we can use the shift key to control the motion, right? So you are having like this. For example, if you are animating the noise texture, you can switch to 40 and you are having this w value as an extra or extra feature under the 4D, and you can animate like this. Yeah, all right. One more thing, under the edit preferences, add-ons, yeah, always people used to say have the node wrangler add-on, right? So if you not enable that one and save preferences, all right. So whatever node you are selected with, you can select that node and control T, right? By this control T, you are having these two nodes, the mapping and the texture coordinate, right? In the previous video, I deeply discussed about the texture coordinate, and if you didn't watch that video, please watch that video, it is important. And probably we discussed the generated UV and the object as a main specific points, right? As the normal camera window and reflection is not going to use that much, or you can say I didn't use those values that much, but the generated UV and the object is going to be work the most of the time, right? So under the mapping, there are different values, properties, the location, rotation, and the scale. You are familiar about what is the location, what is the rotation, and what is the scale. So let's proceed by this. You can change the location. So it is changing the location on the basis of x-axis. Where is the x-axis? It is over here, the red one, right? So you can play with it. It is y1, this one. Yeah, you can also play with the rotation if you want, right? You can also play with the scale if you want, right? Decreasing the scale, right? You can see that effect, right? By default it is set to 0. Sorry, by default it is set to 1, and the location and the rotation is set to 0. Yeah, so here also we are having the similar value. For example, the scale 1, you can increase the scale, it is working in a similar manner, the values which is working over here, right? And there's a option for the detail, right? So what detail? The noise which is there in between these two, that detail it is talking about. You can set to 5, and by default, for example, we can set to 0. It is having this effect. It is also a type of texture. You can make some cartoonish look on a plane or anything, right? So nothing is something, if you are going to set to detail to 0, it is not going to be used. It is not like that, right? It is a creative field. Nothing, everything is going to be used. It is completely depend upon your creativity or the visualization, all right? So under the detail, we can increase this one so that we can see the detail, all right? So maximum, I think 8 is there. We cannot, yeah, we can increase, but we can also increase up to 50, but there is no difference, right? So 8 is the maximum value, and there is also a value of roughness, right? Yeah, the same thing is over here also, the scale and roughness. We will talk that later. And we are having the roughness value. It is having like this. So it is creating some type of effect, right? If you are really having active real life application in your mind, you can have something like rust, right? It is on the metal, it is on the iron, right? You can create that effect by this. You can change the color of this by yellow, right? You can change this one as a probably the brown, right? So it is having this one. Hope you got the point which I always used to make. Yeah. So the another option is there, the distortion. All right, so when you are going to increase this value, it is creating the distortion, right? So that is also a self-explanatory term, right? It will destroy the noise texture or the noise pattern, right? It is not useless, it also can be used, right? So we can now set to 0. Yeah, so we have covered with the noise texture, and then another texture which we going to cover, the Voronoi texture. All right, so we can plug this over here, and as the one node only can be connected over here, so when we are going to connect this node over here, this node get removed, right? Yeah, so this node is get removed, which means the whole node structure is not connected with this principal BSDF, right? So whatever effect this node is making, that effect we cannot see in the material preview. If you want to see, you needed to plug the color over here. Okay, also there are two values, the color and alpha. Alpha determines the transparent values, so you can play with that also. There is different factor value and the color value also. They are going to give you different results, right? And you can play with that also. Yeah, so let's continue with the Voronoi texture, right? So here we are again having different values, the distance, color and the position. The position we are not going to use, it is a vector value, right? Whatever values which is represented as a blue one or the purple, whatever color is over here, that is a vector. So we if we are going to connect, probably it is also going to calculate something in the background and it will show the effect. But let's see, yeah, it is showing the effect. You can see that. Yeah, it's creating a different effect. Yeah, it is cool. Yeah, and it's creating this one. So by the term Voronoi, again I am telling you cannot determine what type of texture it is going to generate, right? The term cannot explain the everything, the name of this node, that as the distance is generating this type of effect, and the color is having this type of effect, and the position is having this type of effect, right? So by distance you are having this. Again we can add a color, we can assemble. Yeah, you can scale it down and have right over here. Okay, how I align these in a same line, you can also do that. Select all, right? Press S in your keyboard and Y and 0, right? That will scale you. Yeah, all right. So we are having a Voronoi texture. Let's add a color ramp again, right? You can add a color ramp as a new, or you can also shift D this one and you can drag and drop over here. And if you want to set the color ramp as a by default, you can set to reset color ramp, right? It is similar to this one which you added as a new, right? Hope you got this point also. Yeah, so we can use this value again over here as like this, right? Or you can add a Control T, you can add a different also, but why we needed to add if you are having a one, right? One more thing I forget to mention. For example, in the under this, as we in the previous video, as we discussed about the texture coordinate, so when we are going to use that node with different texture coordinate, we are having again the different results, right? If you are having connected with the object, it is creating this effect, again the normal, right? So you can play with it, right? There is nothing statement or I cannot use those things. Yeah, so you are having different results, and if you really want to know how they are creating different effect, you you needed to watch the previous video. Alright. By default, it is set to generated. Again, alright. Yeah, so we can plug the vector over into the vector. And so one more thing, the effect which is over the effect which is generating these two nodes, it is not. Yeah, wait a minute. Yes, sorry. So whatever effect these two nodes are making, that is proceeded in this direction, right? So if we connected the node over here, right, so whatever effect these two nodes are giving, that is not like the annotation, right? We can write, yeah. So whatever effect these two nodes are having, that is proceeded in this direction. So for example, we are connected this node over here, so it is not like that. Whatever effect these nodes are having, it is transferred like this, right? So I hope that you know, right? Yeah. All right. Yeah, we can again plug the color into the base color and we are having this effect. Again, we can change the different values. You can set to ease or whatever is giving the results which you are thinking for. You can change on the basis of that. There are different color values also. You can play with all those also. RGB determines red, green and blue, right? Yeah. So we're having this thing. You can change the color, for example, red. If you want the brighter, you needed to move it more towards the white. All right. So this is the effect of noise, and if we are going to plug into the object, right, probably it is having this effect. And if you are going to increase the scale, it will increase the scale. Which scale it is going to increase? The scale of pattern which the color ramp is generating. The color ramp is generating this circular red pattern, right? So that scale it is going to increase, right? Again, there are different values. 4D, again the same thing, the new values came over here. By this effect you can animate that thing. And 1D, 2D are there. There is different drop down option over here also, which is not in the noise texture. So again, what is F1, what is F2, what is smooth F1, what is distance to edge, what is n-sphere radius. You don't need to try to find what does this term means, right? Even I don't even try to get that. Yeah, so you can play with and you will get different results. By this, it is giving this effect. Smooth F1 is giving this effect. Distance to edge, it is giving this effect. Yeah, so you can play with it, right? You can by the distance to edge, by scaling to 20, any number you can use, and by having a random value of 0. That is the magic. Yeah. So randomize values, randomizing the pattern, alright, in this manner. So when we are having, if you want this type of texture, you can have this. You can change the color to black. You can change the color of this one, red one, as a black, and white one as a complete white. You can also have an option to increase this one so that you can drag the values, right? Or you can take the help of this position node by holding the shift. You can drag, right? So you can select the more precise manner, in a more precise manner. All right. To this effect also you can have this. Initially when we added the Voronoi texture, right? For example, let's delete this. explore. Make it as a set default, right? So initially we added a Voronoi texture as a by default, and we added a color ramp which is also a by default, and we are having this type of texture by the effect of Voronoi. But what we did, we played with different values, and by the same Voronoi texture, right, by the same color ramp, but we are tweaking some values, we are having this effect over this effect, right? You can directly see the effect by over a node by control shift and click, the mouse click, right? You can have this, right? The left mouse click you needed to press, right? If you want to see this, what the node structure is creating the effect, right? You needed to click over here because it is connected like this, right? And again, if you are going to click over it by control shift and left mouse button, you can switch to alpha, right? So you can have this, right? Whatever left or right mouse button I'm pressing, it is also visible over here, right? Like this. Yeah, it is a Voronoi texture which we did with, and yeah, you can delete the annotation, or you can simply hide the annotation over here, right? Yeah, in the overlays there is an option of annotation you can hide, right? Okay, yeah, we have this one, and this is for today's video. And the main thing which again I want to tell, that don't get into that term which is written over here, the name of the node, right? You can experiment with, and you will get different result. On the basis of that, you are going to assume this texture is generating this type of effect, and this texture is generating this type of effect. All right, and I hope whatever point I installed or explained in this video, it get into your mind. And this is for this video. And again, anything from your side, please let me know in the comment section. And if you really liking my videos, you can subscribe or share or like or comment, whatever you wish. And yeah, let's end this video, and bye bye, take care.